Hello, my name is Liza Maria, and today I'm happy to have as a guest on my podcast, Christina Korp. She's an astronaut wrangler, a brave, strong, nice, and passionate about what she's doing. Hello, Christina. How are you doing today? And welcome to my
I'm
podcast.
I'm good. How are you, Eliza? So great to see you and to hear you.
I'm doing really good. So to start, can you tell us more about you, like your space background and also into music? Because I think you also had like a band before you started working with astronauts.
Yes, when I was your age, I was singing every night with my family. I was in a family band starting at the age of 12, and I did that till I was 22. And it was me on keyboards, my brother on drums, my sister on bass, and my dad on lead guitar. And then when I was 22, I went to Los Angeles to pursue my music career, and I had more success than a lot of people. I actually ended up getting signed to Warner Brothers, Warner Chappell as a songwriter and as a performer, and made a couple of records. And then I toured all over singing backgrounds for Latin artists. Actually, the first time I went to Romania was as a singer in Bucharest, singing backgrounds for an artist named Diego Gonzalez. And we were opening for a pop group called Rebelde, RBD. Anyway, so eventually I ran a record label, production company, radio show in Los Angeles. And then at one point I decided I needed to have a break. I wanted a quiet, boring job. And so I answered an ad to work for Buzz Aldrin, Apollo 11 astronaut, the second man to walk on the moon. And so this was not the plan for my life, working with astronauts. It wasn't an accident, but it definitely wasn't something that I had planned was to work in space. But now I have worked in space for over 16 years, and I'm in deep space. I'm a space believer, and I have my own company working with multiple astronauts now, and I have my own foundation, Space for a Better World, where we connect the space curious to the space serious and educate about all the ways that space benefits life on Earth.
Wow, that's awesome. And before we're heading up to the next question here, I need to tell you that the day I met you last year in 2020 at Space Fest or Space for a Better World Romania, it was one of the best days of my life. And you became like an inspiration for me.
Well, I appreciate that. And it was inspiring to me to meet you too, because first of all, you said that you were coming to meet me at our event, and I was like, but the astronauts, but you said I wanted to meet you. So it was an honor to know that you and your family drove a long way to come and meet me.
Yes. And how did you got this idea to meet the astronauts and develop events with them?
Well, when I started working with Buzz Aldrin, like I said, it wasn't my plan, but then very quickly I was accepted into the world of Apollo astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, Charlie Duke, many of these guys who walked on the moon. They welcomed me kind of into this Apollo family and accepted me really quickly. And I realized very quickly also that a lot of people don't know what's going on in the space world. And so, with all the years that I worked for Buzz, I realized, well, I could use my entertainment skills, my marketing skills to promote space to people like me, people who love space, who maybe aren't the obvious scientists, engineers, people who work at NASA. And so that's what's kind of led me to my purpose now is I have heard thousands of people's moon landing memories, people who were alive when Apollo 11 landed on the moon, when the Apollo missions happened. They would come up to Buzz Aldrin and me all the time and tell us their moon landing memory. And so that's what's led me to feel like I'm the keeper of the memories. And I feel like I have a responsibility to keep things going. So after the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, in 2019, I decided to start my own company and then work with multiple astronauts. So I work with several astronauts, but I call her my partner in purpose, is NASA astronaut Nicole Stott, I think you might have met her last year. She was there at the Space Fest as well.
I only got a chance to ask her a question like in front of the astronauts, but I didn't got a chance like to meet her in person.
Well, next time.
And I also know you flew in zero G, like in February, with three astronauts, Doug Hurley, Nicole Stott, and Charlie Duke. And how was it like to fly in zero G? Do you have like a story from that day?
Well, first of all, that was my sixth zero gravity flight that I've done. I have done, my first one was actually 3 years ago, 2 days ago was 3 years ago since my first zero gravity flight. So that one included Charlie Duke and Nicole Stott. Um, and since then, I created these experiences to do, because anyone can go on a zero gravity flight if you can afford the ticket to another flight. But what I like to do is put together special flights so that people not only do the zero gravity, but they get to hang out with an astronaut and me for a day. Sometimes more than one astronaut. And then we do a private dinner as well with that. The feeling of floating, it is amazing. I highly recommend it. It's very fun. Even the most serious person gets a big smile on their face when they're in zero gravity, and it's just a joyful feeling. So if it's something you ever get a chance to do, I highly recommend it.
I will try it for sure, like in the future if I get this chance to do it. And how was like to fly with astronauts, like with Doug, Nicole, and Charlie? Like, I mean, Charlie Duke is, I'm not sure his exact age, I think
He's
88.
88 years old. Yeah.
Wow.
Um, I'm really inspired by Charlie being 88 years old, still doing things like this. It makes me feel like I will be able to do that too at that age. I would like to be able to. Um, and the thing I'm very grateful about is those astronauts are my friends too. They have welcomed me into this world they treat me like I'm one of them. Part of it is because I have worked with astronauts now for 16 years. And then when you work with the Apollo astronauts, they're the astronauts that all the other astronauts look up to. They're their heroes. And so getting to do it with, this was the fourth time that Charlie Duke did. Yeah, it was his fourth zero gravity flight with me. Nicole's third zero gravity flight with me, I think. So those two I'm used to flying with, and we look after each other and we try to do fun things together. Believe it or not, this was Doug Hurley's only second zero gravity flight ever. So he had been asking me, hey, if you get a chance, I'd like to come on a zero gravity flight with you. So it worked out this time to bring the three of them, it wasn't the original plan, but it just worked out this way. But lots of fun. And what I like to tell people is even astronauts love zero gravity flights. It's even after they've spent a lot of time in space, they're still eager to do it too. That's how much fun it is to be able to do it, even if you've spent months in space too.
That's awesome. And especially I'm also a huge fan of Dr. Rowling. And he inspired me in 2020 with the first SpaceX flight, DM2. And he's an inspiration for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
And how it's like to be an astronaut wrangler? Is it hard or how do you keep this up?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a one woman owned, one woman run small business. So it's a lot of hard work. People always think that I have a team of like 8 people working with me. It's just me, but that being said, I do need a lot of help. I can't do all of this by myself. So kind of one of my strengths is finding partnerships, finding partners who can help me, working with other people who have complementary skills to what I do. And I think that that's, a good representation of the way things are in space too. In order for a rocket to lift off or something to happen in space, it takes many people working together for a common goal. And so that's what it's like with me working with astronauts. I mean, it's it's a lot of fun. You get to see me go on lots of adventures, but behind the scenes, what people don't see is all the work that goes into it. So it's not just this automatic thing that just everything amazing happens for us. A lot of what you see us doing are experiences and opportunities that I create or I go and find. And they're, not that kind of job is not for everybody. It's to have the desire to create something from scratch and then try to make it happen. It's difficult, but it's very rewarding when you actually can make it happen too. when you can pull something off and actually accomplish it.
That's really cool, and I'm pretty sure that's a really hard work to do, like to bring the astronauts to different countries. And could you share with us some of the greatest experience you had as an astronaut wrangler over the years?
Well, I've been very lucky to have had quite a lot of amazing experiences. I mean, when I started working for Buzz Aldrin, I didn't realize the significance. I didn't realize how often I would be getting to meet some really historical people. So like even for instance, when I met Neil Armstrong several times, it took me a while to realize, wow, I better get a photo with him. You know, here's someone that will be remembered for hundreds of years, thousands of years as the first person to walk, you know, on the moon. And then, you know, meeting people like Stephen Hawking. The first time I, you know, introduced Buzz to Stephen Hawking, that experience was very cool to me, but it was really telling people about it later that made me realize how important it was to be a part of this very first meeting of these icons. And then, you know, I got to take Buzz Aldrin to the South Pole. That was very special on my first time to Antarctica. And unfortunately, Buzz got sick, so we had to be evacuated. So that's a whole crazy story. um, and then I got to go back to Antarctica again in 2021, in December of 2021, with my friend Nicole Stott. And that was amazing to be able to get to do that with her. And so you know, I almost have so many incredible memories that it's almost an abundance of riches that I have so many amazing experiences that it almost sounds crazy. You know, I've done 6 zero gravity flights now. I'm probably going to do more. It's a lot of fun, and it's if I can make more happen, then I'll continue to do it. But I will tell you, one of the most memorable trips I've ever taken though was to Nepal with Buzz Aldrin. We went to Kathmandu and we flew over Mount Everest, and we went to like a safari like retreat park that had some. It was like a place they saved elephants, and they, you know, rescued elephants, and we got to see hippos, and it was just one of the most memorable trips that I've ever gotten to take. And so, you know, like I said, I've done so many incredible things, and I've met so many incredible people that it almost doesn't even sound real in some of the things that I've gotten to do. So I'm very blessed.
That's wonderful. And what inspired you to start doing the space events, like bringing space to different countries around the world? Like, what got you into this business with space?
Well, remember, I answered the ad to work for Buzz Aldrin. And when I took the job, initially, I didn't travel with him. I basically was responsible for the logistics and for the details and for his interviews and things like that, and for his speaking engagements. And then when I took over running his company, then he really needed somebody with him, you know, when he traveled. So that began my adventures of traveling around the world. And I mean, I'm sure it's no surprise that space and astronauts is a very international type of thing. It's for all humanity. It's not really just for one country. And actually, in many ways, people outside of America appreciate NASA astronauts more than the Americans do, because the Americans kind of take them for granted a little bit. And so most of the appearances, a good deal of them that we do are out of America. They're not in the United States, because most other countries don't have as many, you know, some countries don't have any astronauts. Some have one, like Romania has one astronaut. And so it's a very exciting thing for people to be able to meet someone who went to space. So this idea of going around the world with astronauts is just kind of a natural thing that happens. What I do now, especially with Nicole Stott, is we actually try to do outreach in other countries. We actually try to go and hopefully do activities that inspire people. So for instance, in Romania, I mean, the Romanians did not ask us to come. The whole Romania Space Fest thing began because me and my Romanian friend Juana Tucker, she asked me, could you bring what you do with astronauts to Romania? And I said, maybe. And so, you know, we had many meetings, and it took a lot of convincing to people who thought that maybe people in Romania didn't care about space. But as you saw last year, and you are a good example, there is a lot of interest in space. And I think that it's like that in a lot of countries. And so when we have the opportunity to go to a new place and hopefully do inspirational space projects and show that we need all kinds of skills, not just the scientists and engineers, that we can hopefully inspire people to find a place for themselves to work in space and see opportunities for what their skill is to work in space.
And have you ever faced like any challenges working as National Wrangler, or do you have any?
Many challenges. I mean, like I said, most people, they'll see all of the fun, they'll see all of the exciting things, especially when we're posting things on social media. Of course, we're mostly going to post the fun things or the inspiring things or the finished product, but there are many times that things don't go quite the way that we hope, And for instance, for the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, I had gotten the permit to take over a block in Times Square in New York City. Times Square is very famous, it's where all the screens are. It's a very famous place in America. And I had worked really hard to convince the city and the Times Square Alliance and the National Park Service and the New York Department of the Police Department to give me the permit so that I could put a moonscape on the ground in Times Square, so that people could walk on the moon in Times Square for the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. Unfortunately, the temperature was really hot during that time, and it was 115 degrees. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's really hot. It's like as hot in the desert as if you were in the desert. And so the city had to cancel all the permits. So here I was with astronauts, with all the materials, all my volunteers, and they canceled our activation outside. And so instead of just packing our bags and going home, we decided to shift and move everything inside a Marriott hotel that's right there in Times Square. And so we still did it. It wasn't as big as we had hoped or out in the public, but we still did it because the important part of it was that kids from New York were making moon bases and Mars bases, and they were making things that, were for the anniversary, and the astronauts were there. And we still wanted the kids to be able to meet the astronauts. So that particular challenge turned into still a very good event. And actually what that did was strengthen my relationship with Nicole Stott. She was one of the astronauts that had come to support that event. And when she saw that I really cared about the kids, and that I didn't give up and I found another way to make this happen, that made her want to continue to work with me. So even though I didn't get to do this big grand thing out in Times Square, I built this really strong relationship with Nicole, and we do a lot all over the world now together.
That's so cool. And I'm pretty sure here on all of your events is like a process. And can you walk us through the process of the space event? Like how you take the astronauts to different countries, or what you need for this?
Well, so, what a lot of people may not understand is, so when a NASA astronaut or a European Space Agency astronaut or whoever, JAXA, Japanese, or even the cosmonauts in Russia, when they're active astronauts, meaning they work for NASA or they work for ESA, they are government employees. So they work for the government. So they can't just go do whatever event they can. But once they leave and retire from NASA or retire from ESA, most of them make their living doing appearances, speaking engagements, doing events, that sort of thing. So that's most of what my work is I help them, I book them for events, I handle the logistics, I handle the contracts and the details of that sort of thing. So those most of the time are somebody else is holding an event and they want an astronaut to come to their event. So that's one aspect of it. The other side of it is I think up one of my crazy ideas and then I have to figure out how can I make this happen. I have to try to find partners in that place. I have to try to get sponsors in that place. I have to get volunteers in that place. So there's a lot of work to when I think of a new project that I want to roll out, then I have to think of how am I going to make it happen. That's the part about being an entrepreneur. It's hard. It's not for people who don't want to work a lot because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of effort. But it's very rewarding to see something that you dreamed up come to pass, come to happen, and see people enjoying it. And so it's something that I really enjoy. And also, by the way, a lot of times when you see me and Nicole out there doing the aim higher artworks or doing things like that, that is us giving back. A lot of times we are donating our time when we're going to visit schools or when we're going to certain places. Even when we were in Romania last year, we did not get paid for that. That was a lot of time and effort and money, and we were donating our time to help inspire people in that place. We can't keep doing that forever. We have to do things where we actually get paid for our time and our expertise. So, but we donate a lot of our time when we can and in the right situation.
That's awesome, and especially the artworks you did with Nicole around the world, they were wonderful. And I know there's a lot of effort on all those artworks and all the projects. And the last question here is, what advice do you have for the people that like space or want to work with space in the future?
So I know, like in places like Romania, it may not seem obvious to find jobs in space, but I think if you look hard enough, you will find that. And I will say the thing that I appreciate about Polytechnica in Bucharest is that they're very committed to promoting their aerospace engineering program. And like Space Fest is coming up again, and that's a good opportunity for young people and families and adults too to see what kind of opportunities there are to work in space. I know there are some companies in Romania like Thales. Thales does a lot of software development, but that software development is meant for satellites, satellite communications, satellite, type of space activities. So I think there are lots of opportunities there. So I think, if you want to work in space, there's ways to find your place in it. I think you just have to be persistent. I will say that I know people from other countries who wanted to work in space so badly that they went to another country. So, it kind of depends on what you want to do, how determined you are. A lot of people will tell you, oh, study math and science and all of that. And yes, you can do that. That's the obvious route for education, is to get a degree in mathematics or in engineering in some form. But I'm here to tell you, I don't have any of those degrees. And I work with astronauts. I'm a musician, I'm a creative person, I'm a marketing manager, I care about sustainability. And the creative skills that I have are very valuable for the types of projects that I do. And so I really encourage anyone who wants to work in space to understand that whether you're an accountant, whether you're a lawyer, whether you do administration, whether you sew and you want to sew spacesuits. I mean, there are so many different types of jobs in space. And so don't limit yourself. There's a way to find a job for yourself if you really want to work in space.
Well, thank you so much, Christina, for joining me today on my podcast. And I wish you all the best and never stop being happy and such a great person. And keep it up. And good luck in your career.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to be on your podcast.